In the quiet, windswept highlands of northern Scotland, Ravenhill Hospital stood as a century-old monument to both healing and history. Its stone walls had seen generations come and go, but one part of it remained shunned and silent: the morgue. Tucked away at the far end of the west wing, it was a place of last resort, a place no one visited unless their profession demanded it. The morgue had 4 windows. 3 were ordinary, their panes clouded with age, but they opened easily to the misty Scottish air. The 4th, however, was a different story. It was sealed shut, bolted, and barred, a permanent fixture of warning. This is where our story begins, with the arrival of Dr. Emily Warren. Young, brilliant, and fiercely confident, she was the new forensic pathologist. Ravenhill was her first real posting after years of academic excellence. It was her first time facing the stark reality of her profession, away from the sterile environment of the lecture hall. On her first day, she met Arthur, the morgue's long-serving attendant. He'd been there for over 30 years, a hunched, quiet man whose sharp eyes seemed to miss nothing. As he showed her around the cold, tiled room, he stopped and pointed a bony finger. "You can open any of the 3 windows for air, Doctor," he said, his voice a low rumble. "But never ever touch the 4th one?" Emily couldn't help but smirk. "Why? Is it haunted?" The old man's face grew solemn. "Those who laugh at it," he said gravely, "don't laugh for long." Emily brushed it off as local folklore, the kind of superstitious tale that clings to old buildings like ivy. She was a woman of science, of logic. Ghosts and curses had no place in her world. But she couldn't have known that her dismissal of Arthur's warning was the first step into a nightmare that would soon unravel everything she believed in. Like Emily, he was a man of science, a skeptic who scoffed at the supernatural. He believed in facts and evidence and things he could see and touch. The morgue was just a workplace to him, and the 4th window was just a window. One night, while working a late shift, he felt the room grow stuffy. He needed some air, maybe a quick smoke. Ignoring the hushed warnings of the hospital staff, he unlatched and pushed open the forbidden 4th window. A nurse named Carolyn was passing by the corridor just as he did it. She saw a strange, pale mist, thick and unnatural, billow into the morgue. Through the haze, she saw Dr. Hyla free his mid-step, his cigarette falling from his fingers. He just stood there, staring blankly into the fog as if hypnotized. Alarmed, she rushed to get help. When she returned just moments later, the mist was gone and the window was shut. But Jonathan Hawley was a changed man. He was trembling, drenched in a cold sweat, his eyes locked on the window, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. He survived the night, but the man of logic was gone, replaced by a paranoid, haunted shell. He immediately applied for a transfer, desperate to get away. But before his papers could be approved, his body was found. He was lying on the cold ground directly beneath the 4th window, his eyes wide open, his face frozen in the same horrifying expression of fear. After that tragedy, the hospital's director, Dr. Henry Graves, ordered the window to be permanently sealed. No one was to ever open it again. Months rolled by, and Dr. Emily settled into the grim rhythm of her work. The initial shock of her job faded, replaced by a detached clinical precision. The morgue became her domain, and the legend of the 4th window became just another piece of background noise, a corner of the room she subconsciously avoided. Life, or rather death, went on. Until one dark, stormy night. A major accident on the nearby motorway had overwhelmed the hospital. The morgue was filled to capacity, every slab occupied. Lost in the stressful chaos of the night, Emily directed the attendants to place the last body on a temporary gurney. She didn't realize where she'd put it until it was too late, directly in front of the Forbidden's window. That night was a new moon, and the storm raged outside, rattling the old hospital to its foundations. The power flickered, plunging the morgue into momentary darkness. A profound chill, colder than the usual morgue air, seeped into the room. Suddenly, Arthur appeared in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes wide with dread. "You shouldn't have done that, Doctor," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. "Tonight is the night she wakes." Emily tried to force a confident smile to dismiss his fear, but then she heard it, a faint, high-pitched scraping sound. It sounded like fingernails dragging slowly along metal. Her blood ran cold. She spun around, her gaze fixed on the fourth window. The thick iron bars that sealed it were bending. They were pushing outward, as if something on the other side was trying to force its way in. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice trembling, betraying her scientific composure. There was no answer. Outside the glass, there was only the swirling mist of the storm and a faint, sickly yellow glow, like a single candle flickering behind a wall of fog. Then, with a sudden whoosh, a gust of impossibly cold air burst through the sealed frame, blasting into the room. The white sheet covering the body on the gurney whipped up violently, and a whisper, thin and ethereal, echoed around the tiles. "Let me rest." Emily didn't move for the rest of the night. She just sat there, her back against the far wall, her eyes locked on that window until the first gray light of dawn broke through the storm clouds. The next morning, sleep-deprived and on edge, Emily cornered Arthur. "I'm done with the stories," she said, her voice firm. "What is behind that damn window?" "I need the truth, now." Arthur hesitated, his gaze shifting towards the sealed window, then back to her. He finally let out a long, weary sigh. "That window doesn't look into the world outside, Doctor," he said quietly. "It looks into what we left unfinished." The cryptic answer wasn't enough. Emily went straight to the director's office. Faced with her terrified but determined questions, Dr. Graves finally relented and told her the whole story. 8 years ago, a young, vibrant nurse named Isabella Moore worked at Ravenhill. One morning, she was found murdered on the hospital grounds. Her body had been horrifically brutalized, making visual identification impossible for her grieving family. With no leads, the police eventually closed the case, labeling it unsolved. Her unidentified remains were brought to the morgue and stored on the slab beneath the fourth window, awaiting a final resolution that never came. She was never cremated, never given a proper burial or blessing. The day after her body was brought in, the doctor on duty for the night shift vanished without a trace. The only things ever found were one of his blood-stained shoes and Isabella's own belt, lying on the ground under that same window. That was the day Dr. Graves ordered it sealed, hoping to lock away the horror and the tragedy forever. But for Emily, locking it away wasn't an answer. It was a problem. A soul was trapped, a story was unfinished, and her scientific mind couldn't rest until she had proof. She had to know. She had to see for herself. She waited for the next new moon, the darkest night of the month. This time, she wasn't alone. She had sought out Father MacLeod, an old, semi-retired priest from a nearby village, known for his experience with places forgotten by God. Together, they returned to the morgue. They drew a protective circle of salt and ash on the floor and began chanting ancient rites of peace and passage. Emily, ever the scientist, set up a digital camera on a tripod, its lens aimed directly at the fourth window. As the clock ticked towards 3 a.m., the legendary witching hour, the air in the room grew deathly still and ice cold. The battery on the camera, fully charged just moments before, suddenly died. The screen went blank, and then a voice filled the silence. It was faint, desperate, and filled with an ancient sorrow. "They never burned me. I'm still waiting." Emily and the priest stared at the window as the mist outside began to glow again. A figure slowly took shape within the fog, a woman in the torn, crimson-red remnants of an old nurse's uniform. Her face was half charred, her eyes were hollow pits of darkness, yet they seemed to stare right into Emily's soul. "Please," the apparition whispered, its voice cracking with pain. "Set me free." In that moment, Emily's scientific detachment shattered. This wasn't a case file, it was a person. Tears streamed down her face. "I promise," she whispered back. "I'll give you peace." Father McLeod stepped forward and threw a handful of blessed ash against the glass. A terrifying scream ripped through the air, shaking the very walls of the morgue, a sound of both agony and release. And then, silence. The first thing Emily did the next morning was reopen Isabella Moore's cold case. Digging through old hospital archives, she found the original DNA records. With modern technology, she traced Isabella's lineage to a family that had long since moved away, a family that had never gotten closure. A week later, a small solemn funeral was held on the green banks of the River Clyde. Isabella Moore was finally laid to rest. That very night, back at Ravenhill Hospital, the old, rusted bolts on the fourth window slid shut on their own. With a final, soft click, the whispers were gone, the screams were gone. For the first time in years, the morgue was truly silent. Today, a simple portrait of St. Mary hangs on the wall above the sealed window, a symbol of peace and protection. The staff who work there now say the air feels different, lighter. The oppressive chill is gone. But even now, some say that on dark, stormy nights, when the wind howls through the Scottish Highlands, you can sometimes hear a soft, gentle whisper through the old stone walls. A whisper that says, "Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much for watching." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another tale from the shadows. Until next time, stay safe.